Pascoe Vale.
Thank you, Acting Speaker, and I too rise to speak in support of the Tobacco Amendment, Tobacco Retail and Wholesale Licensing Scheme Bill of 2024. Acting Speaker, the fundamental role, of course, of any Victorian government is to help support and improve the health, well-being and, of course, the safety of all Victorian families and all Victorian communities. However, as we're aware, the illegal tobacco trade over recent times has become rife through the growing number of unregulated tobacco shops, impacting both our health and compromising our community safety. It's causing risk and harm to the community, all the while dangerous criminals profit. Indeed, in rising to speak to this bill, I acknowledge that just this week, on the 11th of November and Tuesday the 12th of November, my community very concerningly experienced two suspected arson attacks at the same Coonans Road shop in Pascoe Vale South, which is allegedly and could possibly most likely be connected with the illegal tobacco trade. According to Victoria Police statement issued this week, detectives are investigating the circumstances around the incident, which occurred in the very early hours, and whether it could be connected with other similar incidents. Very fortunately, a family who reside and live in the attached store were not injured, with police continuing to investigate the matter and anyone with information encouraged to come forward via Crime Stoppers. In the interim, my thoughts and support, of course, are with all the shopkeepers through the Coonans Road shopping precinct during this time and the surrounding neighbourhood, including families of Pascoe Vale South Primary School, childcare, of course also Parkstone Cafe, Coonans Road Fish and Chips, M8 Barber, TRS Pilates, which was just opening up next door, Coonans Hill Pizza and Pasta Shop, Coonans Convenience Store, the Old Faithful Cafe, Medusa Hair Studio and Coonans Cellars. Because in rising to speak on this very important matter, I'm glad to say to my community that this very bill will go a long way in helping to keep us both healthier but also importantly safer across Pascoe Vale, Coburg and Brunswick West, and I do look forward to working with all of the traders to help revitalise and rebuild after this attack. Because by introducing the toughest laws in the country to crack down on the illegal tobacco trade through this bill, we'll be smoking out the illegal tobacco trade across the state and providing Victoria Police with the new powers they need to crack down on crime lords and build on those previous record investments and reforms and laws that we have provided via Victoria Police to keep our community safe. This March, Acting Speaker, the Victorian Labor Government, of course, announced that we'd be introducing a bill to introduce the new tobacco retailer and wholesale licensing scheme by the end of this year, and that's exactly what we're doing now. And we're getting it right with the harshest penalties in the country. The scheme has been informed by the recommendations of the PAEC inquiry into vaping and tobacco controls completed in August of 2024, and I acknowledge my good friend, the Chair, the member for Laverton, for her incredible work and all the other parliamentarians on that committee. The bill builds on the work, of course, of Victoria Police's Task Force Luna, which has already seen more than 80 offenders arrested and $37 million worth of cash, vapes and illegal tobacco products also seized. And the bill will introduce quite a number of new reforms. Firstly, to introduce strict new licensing regime to establish a tobacco businessing licensing scheme so tobacco can only be sold by licensed retailers. A licence is only available for fit and proper persons who pass a strict test, and you can be refused a licence based on your history and known associates. This will help protect legitimate businesses from getting undercut and from criminal syndicates and ban those who have criminal affiliations from having anything to do with the trade. And getting the scheme right is important because what we're talking about is getting it right and implemented from the very big retailers, your Coles and your Woolies, right through to your local family milk bars and small businesses. We're introducing more powers through Victoria Police's search powers to be beefed up to make it easier and quicker for them to raid, search and seize illegal and illicit products from retailers suspected of having links to organised crime. Police will also play a very key role in ensuring the suitability of licensees under the scheme. There will also be powers to impose further licence conditions. We're introducing dedicated inspectors. A new tobacco regulator will be established with dedicated inspectors to hit the streets alongside Victoria Police. The regulator will administer the licensing scheme and will be responsible for enforcement and compliance of licences. This includes the power to search shops, suspend licences and, of course, seize illegal items. Inspectors will also support police with extra intelligence gathering in the fight against organised crime. We're introducing the toughest penalties in Australia. If you break these new laws, you'll face the toughest penalties. Any person found to be selling illicit tobacco will face fines of more than $355,000, up to 15 years in jail, while businesses will face fines of more than $1.7 million. These reforms build on the work already underway by Victoria Police to disrupt and deter crime associated with the supply of illicit tobacco as part of that Task Force Luna. This work to date has seen more than 80 offenders arrested, $37 million worth of cash vapes and illegal tobacco products seized. Tougher penalties will come into effect immediately when the Act commences, and the rollout of the new licensing scheme will start from the middle of next year. And the bill will commence in 2 stages. There's been a lot of talk about the commencement, but let me reassure the House this is commencing as soon as possible. The first stage will come into effect by the end of this year, establishing the licensing scheme, the regulator, and allow for the appointment and training of licensed inspectors. This will allow for licence applications to be made and determined in advance of the requirement for businesses to hold a licence. Stage 1 will also amend the existing offences and powers in the Tobacco Act and repeal e-cigarette and specialist tobacconist provisions. And the second stage will introduce the licensing offences and enforcement powers of licensing inspectors, enabling penalties to be applied to tobacco suppliers operating without a licence. We need to give retailers the time and the opportunity to obtain their licences, Acting Speaker, before we can commence enforcement. We have to set up the tobacco licensing scheme, recruit the inspectors, and give businesses that opportunity to begin complying. And when combined, these reforms in the bill will respond significantly to community concerns regarding illicit tobacco and the prevalence of tobacco businesses suspected of involvement in distribution. There is also, of course, a significant public health good that comes from regulating tobacco. We know that, according to Quit Victoria, smoking does cost the economy $3.7 billion in tangible healthcare costs and an additional $5.8 billion associated with the loss of life every year. According to Vic Health, tobacco is also estimated to kill 4,000 Victorians and about 20,000 people around Australia every year, making it the leading cause of preventable deaths in Australia. And in Victoria, we spend more than $600 million a year on smoking-related healthcare. And Acting Speaker, with the time I have, along with the statewide benefits in the bill, I'd like to also just acknowledge some of the correspondence I've received from local residents, including in May by a local dad, Cameron, who wrote to me reporting that in North Coburg, Newlands, opposite a local primary school, there is a small convenience store that has opened up. It's clearly a front for selling vapes to underage students, with high volume of students frequenting it, with their actual stock list being incredibly bare and thin. Myself and several concerned local community members have reported this to the council, and with the new vaping restrictions coming into place federally, I know you will be keen, that's yours truly, to follow this up and ensure sufficient action has been taken at the council level. Well, I did definitely escalate that issue, Cameron, and I am pleased to say also through the measures contained in the bill today, we are taking that real strong enforcement action going forward. Just yesterday I received an email from James of Pascoe Vale South, who said to me, and I quote, "You will be aware of what occurred on Coonans Road in the early hours of Monday morning, namely the firebombing of Coonans Road Convenience Store. It is an event that has shaken and hurt the local community. I had been to the store prior to the attack and noticed they were selling black market tobacco. I'm hugely relieved that no one was injured. It's a tragic that surrounding businesses have also been damaged, including the new Pilates studio. I recognise that this is a complex issue and requires coordination from all levels of government and even private businesses, including insurers and landlords. I'm not sure of the solution, but may I ask you to please at least pass this on to the Premier and the Cabinet of these concerns and how the community is feeling right now." Well, James, I'm pleased to say I'm directly raising your concerns not only to the Premier and the Cabinet Ministers, but to the Parliament as we pass this bill that will take strong action going forward to crack down on illicit tobacco industry. But it's also St Oliver's student James, who wrote to me in June of 2023, who will be pleased that this bill is passing. And he said to me, and I quote, "I'm writing to raise awareness about vapes and tobacco being sold illegally in schools. Many businesses let people buy them without ID, which is not okay. Anybody caught selling vapes without ID verification should have their business shut down, receive a $10,000 fine and a month in prison." Well, James, I'm very pleased to say that this bill will fine businesses in breach up to $1.7 million, accompanied with the toughest penalties in Australia, up to 15 years in prison. Thomas from St Oliver's also previously wrote to me, said, "Young teenagers and even older primary students have been getting a hold of vapes and tobacco, and something needs to be done about this issue. Some ways to stop this can include council workers patrolling the streets near schools." Well, Thomas, I'm very pleased to also report that this bill will establish a new Victorian tobacco regulator with dedicated inspectors to hit the streets alongside Victoria Police. And finally, Isabel from St Oliver Plunkett's also wrote to me to say that one vape is equivalent to 50 cigarettes, with vapes proven to be more harmful than cigarettes. Well, Isabel, I'm pleased to say that the crackdown on illegal tobacco and vaping via this bill will help our community be healthier and safer through better regulation and oversight of such products. And with the time I have remaining, I just want to call out the opposition on their pathetic response to this absolute essential piece of legislation. We had the PAYAC hearings that we heard about earlier, where hardly any of the opposition members bothered to turn up. Bev McArthur carried the show for the opposition when it came to the PAYAC hearings. And the member for Ovens Valley, what a fraud that his motion is in terms of